sometimes it's the best way to express yourself. So I understand.
Yeah. All right. So it looks like the YouTube is going to work.
Is Jen joining us today?
As far as I know. Okay. And Sarah.
Excellent.
So I get this thing on YouTube that says YouTube error, and yet we're on YouTube. So I don't know. But I'll double check and make sure. Yep. We're live there on YouTube.
Excellent.
We'll check the Facebook. And by the way, nobody watches live. Doing it live is just kind of a, I don't know, ego thing, I guess, because we can.
It's like a fun extra. I've definitely done some live videos, and it's like my mom and my best friend join, but.
Yep. So yeah, we're live everywhere. Now I'm going to see if I can make my tablet here watch the chat on Facebook. Normally I don't bother trying to look at the chat. So I don't know. In theory, if somebody types something in chat, I'll see it. No one's ever done that. And there's Jen. Jen, we're live on Facebook and YouTube, so whatever you say, Jen can't hear us yet.
Whatever you say it with feeling.
Yeah. So Sunday at 4 o'clock. I'm looking at the wrong thing on Facebook. Looking at the promo. Hello, Jen. Can you hear us now?
Oh, I could hear you from the beginning. I just wasn't speaking because, you were live on Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, well, say hello to Facebook and YouTube.
Hello, Facebook and YouTube. Behold how I plug in my microphone. See, the little blue light came on when I plugged it in.
Jen, meet Jillian. Jillian, meet Jen.
Hi, Jillian.
Hey, Jen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I need to get myself a fancy microphone like y'all.
Gary did it. It's Gary's fault. I was the only one without a fancy microphone, and he just wasn't having that obvious juxtaposition.
I don't know if Sarah's got a fancy mic or not, does she?
She does. Whether she breaks it out or not is entirely up to her.
Okay.
But she was the fancy. She said she didn't get the link.
She didn't get the link.
I can see she's on the email.
Yeah, I emailed it to her. I don't have a direct texting to her, only the email, so.
Yeah, I just sent it to her.
Emails for the olds now.
Yeah.
I just sent it to her again.
I don't like email. I don't like making phone calls. I could be a kid. I don't like making phone calls. I don't like email.
Nobody likes cold calls. Nobody.
Well, not just cold calls. I don't like any phone calls.
I love email. I don't know about y'all. I feel like I'm an inbox zero kind of person. So I will read almost every email or file it away.
Mm-hmm. I grew up on email, but the kids these days don't.
My inbox would give you stress then. I'm sitting at like 20,000 emails.
No, Jen.
It's because that's my filing cabinet. Like, I use it to search. I answer all the important incoming emails. I have a flag that goes up on them, and I've deflagged them, but...
That's why you have labels and folders to stick things in so you can find them later.
Yeah, but then I have to remember what I cutely labeled it.
Oh, Brendan, I don't think you've got your big broadcast mic turned on. You sound hollow.
I just want to point out something super cool. So I may have gone to Burger King for an Impossible Whopper.
You may or may not have.
But they didn't give me a straw because I asked nicely for no straw. And so I'm using a reusable straw.
Ha. There's Sarah.
Because we live in that kind of world.
They've been saying that the amount of single-use plastic waste has gone up because of the amount of takeout. I know that, if I order at any restaurant, they give me utensils automatically without asking. And I'm like, if anything, now more than ever, I don't need it because I'm going home.
We have a drawer full of plastic forks and straws and spoons and sporks. I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, oh, definitely.
Just making sure.
Just so you know, Sarah, your name is Carlos.
Carlos Reyes. Can she hear us?
I don't think she can hear us.
She just muted herself and turned off her camera.
Oh, what's the
our Zoom names don't show up. We can hear you.
3, 4.
There we go.
We hear you?
And now
I don't see you.
Well, that's a separate part. I had to handle one thing at a time.
Okay. Warning, danger, we are live on YouTube and Facebook.
Very dangerous.
Everything you say will be held against
you in a court of public opinion.
Can and will.
Eek, the worst kind of opinion.
So interesting conversation about cancel culture while we're talking about court of public opinion. The question got brought up by somebody today about whether or not we should cancel Trader Joe's over their ethnic food labels. For those who don't know, Trader Joe's was already talked to a while ago about whether or not like Trader Ming's and Trader Giotto's and Trader Jose's was acceptable. And a while ago, they said, okay, we've got to use up the packaging that we've got on hand because we've already made those products, but we won't do it anymore. And so they already a while ago committed to this, and they're using up what's on the shelves before they could start packaging things in new packaging.
So back off, everybody.
Have they decided what their new packaging is going to be then? Or is it just going to all be Trader Joe's?
It's all Trader Joe's.
Which is honestly fine.
But it brought up the conversation about like this person who's like, we're going to cancel them for this. Somebody else was like, what would the effect of canceling them now be? What's the point?
I read an article recently about woke capitalism that is troubling in the sense that a lot of brands and businesses will get on social media and, drape a rainbow flag on something or change the labels on their products because it's a really easy, superficial thing for them to do. And it doesn't actually change what the business is doing or who they fund or any of the systemic underlying issues. But it looks good on social media, so we give them a pass.
Yep.
Virtue signaling theater.
Let's say cough. Who's the chicken place? Not Bojangles.
Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A. Cough. Chick-fil-A. Cough.
Yeah. Sarah, meet Jillian. I'm not sure which corner she is for you. Jillian,
hey, Sarah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So,
sorry I wasn't here earlier.
No problem.
As a quick moment of pre-show, I'd just also like to say, while we're talking about virtual signaling and whatnot, this conversation about including a poor brown or black person in your school pod, I feel is nothing but virtual signaling of nonsense, because it's on the baseline assumption that your pod's private tutor is going to be better than what this child can get from their public school teacher.
It's also assuming that because they are outside of your particular social group, that they wouldn't do that for themselves. Like that's been an interesting thing that I've seen is a lot of like, it's not just privileged upper income people who are doing this whole idea of pods. Like there are other neighborhoods who are doing the same thing and coming together to serve their own needs. Like
my building,
I don't know,
which I live in, we've got a pod.
Savior complex.
We've got a pod, and it's all black and brown kids, and they've got a pod.
Yeah, they don't necessarily need to be rescued. And while that's a good instinct, that I'm not sure it's great the way that it plays out.
The difference between equity and the white savior complex.
Yeah, and we're not doing a pod at all. Like, we're just doing Virtual Academy in Wake County, and that's it. So
yeah, because you recognize that the teacher that they get there is a good teacher, which I think a lot of people, again, it's that assumption that's going on, is that my private teacher is, because I'm paying them personally, gotta be better than whatever the public schools are offering, and that's not necessarily the case. The public schools might, surprisingly enough, hire good teachers.
Well, there's this fantasy that people have that private school teachers get paid more, and they don't.
No,
they're not better qualified or whatever. They're just in the private school instead of the public school, and the children they teach are generally more affluent. But that's the real and only difference. It's not that the teacher is superlative or anything else.
I mean, I interviewed for private school teaching jobs, and the reason I took a public school teaching job, because I was fresh out of college, fresh out of grad school. I had student loans. I was going to follow the money, honey. I didn't care where it came from. Like, I had some loans to pay, and then we could start talking about values. The private schools I interviewed at made it very clear to me that students not earning A's was going to be a little bit unacceptable. And I was like, but what if they didn't earn the A?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, you might not be the right fit for our school.
Elitism at its finest.
Mm-hmm.
And Jen and Brendan have taken over the show before we've even started. Sarah, let's see. Let me check a few things before we get started here. There's your lower third title. We have making you the token libertarian. Is that?
I'm okay with this.
And is that a hedgehog?
It's a porcupine.
Okay. Is there a story?
That's the idea. Is if each party is to have an animal that represents itself. We had a penguin at one point, which is a whole other deep party history story. But the porcupine they're cute and cuddly and very non-aggressive unless threatened.
Cuddly?
I feel like that's
actually
hedgehog, not a porcupine.
But you clearly have never played with porcupines before. As long as you are not
Which
aggressive
one's got the really big quills? I feel like the hedgehogs are the cute, adorable ones, and the porcupines are the ones with the quills that go this long.
They're both cute and cuddly if you're nice to them.
They're pretty cute, both groups.
It's a lot easier to stick yourself on the longer quills.
Yeah. Be careful.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't call that cuddly. I would call them
personal responsibility. Something.
And it's a lot easier to get crushed under an elephant's foot. I'm just saying, there's usually implications behind all of the symbolism.
I'm saying I've got problematic reasons for all the animals, so we can keep going.
Okay, so before we start, a reminder, and I guess for even Sarah, but Jillian especially, we have a policy on the program. Anyone can declare an instant editorial at any time. If you want to rant about something in the middle of the show, if suddenly it's coming into your mind, you have to do an instant editorial, you can just let me know, and I will push the instant editorial button, which currently says clickbait, because at some point I'm going to change that to instant editorial.
Last week he's like, I'm going to fix this right now, and then never did.
No, it could be months. It could be years before I fix that. So if it's something you decide you have to do, got to do what you got to do. Instant editorial. Everybody
speak your truth.
Everybody qualifies.
Great. I can do that.
Yep. And I don't know, Sarah. You're probably not looking at the show doc.
I is.
You are okay.
So you cursor.
See your
show doc.
See your spot where it is.
I do.
And you can use that, or you can write one in the next 30 seconds.
I did not write one ahead of time, so I will just go with that.
Okay.
Not quite that confident. I know I come off that way, but I'm not.
All right. So all that means is I have to push the button that does this. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. And sequestered in that studio, I am Gary Pearce.
And from the Yellow Room, on the border of Carborough and the People's Republic of Chapel Hill, sequestered at the foot of Mount Okanichi, which is a real mountain, and on the side of the hill with the chapel up top, I'm Jet, host of NannyCast.
And from a converted attic apartment on the edge of downtown Cary, nowhere near any mountain that I'm aware of, I'm Breandan Dezendorf, the host of the Practical Operations Podcast.
And from the living room studio, halfway between Calibut Springs and McGee's Crossroad, I'm down the street from the world-famous Gord Museum. I'm Sarah Wagner, your token libertarian.
You are just down the street from the Gord Museum. Which
I pass it every time I drive by, or drive to your house, Sarah.
So
We've had long conversations about its accessibility.
Yes.
So
I mentioned that to these guys, too.
So you pronounced it Calibut.
Yes, and this is a very contentious local issue because you know that you're not from around here when people say Challybeat.
Well, I was going to say Calibut, so I'm close.
Challybeat?
I've heard many lectures to the tune of it's Calibut. And
Okay.
in good Southern fashion, you just make sure it has as few syllables as possible when pronounced.
So if I say Calibut, people are going to say, "Well, you're
Challybeat.
close, but you're not quite."
Yeah, I don't think they'll give you too much guff
Calibut.
for it.
Can Gary, can you put the word up so that people can see it? Because I'm struggling with how you would read that as Challybeat. I mean, I see the CH, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the beat, B-E-A-T-E, like this, the E at the end makes the other, never mind.
It's silent. Challybeat.
Yes, but it changes the vowel, never mind.
Yeah.
It changes the vowel pronunciation.
And there's the there's a little clip I took out of Google Maps outlining Anger.
Yes, Anger.
Anger, okay.
It's 2.1 square miles this time.
Yep.
It's a good town.
And I did not add Gord Museum. That was there. That's what
We
Google
do have a
Maps
Gord
thinks
Museum, yes.
And it is world famous.
It is.
makes it world famous.
Actually, our most famous feature for the town is our ice cream shop, Sunny Skies. They have spicy ice cream that you have to like sign a waiver and everything to try. But they have 2 flavors of
Spicy.
hot pepper ice cream.
How many
Ooh, I'd
times have
try
I
that.
visited you? How many? How many
Have
times?
we never gone for the spicy ice
We've
cream?
never gone for spicy ice cream. How many times?
I'm in.
Well, next time you come down, we will have to do this. I've taken my coworkers there, and it's always a great experience. The 2 flavors are Cold Sweat, which has like habaneros and serranos, and then there's a ghost pepper flavor. That if you can eat Cold Sweat, if you can successfully eat that like taster spoon, then they'll give you a taster of Exit Wound.
Exit wound.
I have a feeling how
Exit
I have
wound.
a feeling I know how Exit Wound got its name.
The double burner, as they say in the business.
Yeah, they don't actually sell like a whole cup of it because generally it's just a question of are you going to be able to eat the entire sample spoon?
They're delicious, right?
Oh, but yeah, they have a ton of other delicious, amazing homemade flavors beyond that.
If we ever get
And
back
they've
into the
got an
business,
elaborate drive-through system now.
if we ever get back into the business of like seeing people in person, I make hot sauce from time to time, and I do it with habaneros and ghost peppers. So I will share with you folks because
I
it's
pickle.
tasty.
Awesome.
I pickle things, and I just got a pH meter, so now I don't have to use the pH strips. I can like digitally know the pH of the pickles that I've made.
Okay.
That's nice.
Do you pick your pickles?
No, Peter Piper does that. He picks my pecks of pickled peppers.
I just did some pickling myself for the first time. It's not easy. I was kind of making up a recipe.
The program is descending into chaos. Ladies and gentlemen, we here are the best. Here's something I just made up for this show. We'll use it from now on, but I just made this up. We're the best team of podcasters in North Carolina. What do you think?
I think we're the only team of podcasters. In North
No,
Carolina.
actually,
No, there's-
podcasting, North Carolina is, I want to say, has the most podcasters of any state.
But
it's
do
either-
they do it as teams? That's where I think we might win.
I mean, there's a lot of team podcasts.
I'm not fudging this. I'm just, we're the best team of podcasters in North Carolina.
I mean, it is subjective. I'm willing to take on this title.
I would say
It comes with responsibility, though.
duos and trios and then teams. We're a team now. There are 5 of us.
This is episode 101. It's for Durham. Hey, Durham. July 19th, 2020. Dirty and wet in Durham. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is clickbait. I believe that is official clickbait. I was going to call it soiled and watered, but then I went for the clickbait. This is all in honor of our guest who is in the upper left-hand corner, Jillian Riley. Jillian is 2020 candidate for the Durham Soil and Water Conservation District. Jillian, welcome to the show. Are you sure you want to
Thanks.
stay here?
I just drove over Ellerby Creek today.
Oh, did you? Lot to talk about that. Yeah, happy to be here. Never thought I would be on a podcast called Dirty and Wet, but definitely excited to explore this conversation.
There you go. There's your title. Well, you're a candidate. You haven't been on the commission yet. But
Nope.
I'm thinking a soil and water commission, it's just a tee shot. It's a setup for jokes. It's got to be.
Yeah, it definitely, it leaves no room for imagination. We literally work on soil and water issues. So it gets straight to the point for sure. And yeah, I'm a first-time candidate. I'll be running for an open seat on the district board. And I'm excited to put my name in the hat.
All right. Okay, we got some boilerplate show stuff to do, and then we'll actually go back to, because we started, go back to doing regular talking. The Triangle Talk Show is a YouTube show and a podcast for the Triangle area of North Carolina. And although we are a video show, obvious for those of you watching on Facebook Live or YouTube Live or Memorex in the afternoon, although we're a video show, we present as a podcast. Now, I'm using that as in the most woke sense of the word I possibly can. We present as a podcast. Note A, the big honking headphones. B, the big honking microphones. C, not really a TV set for anybody. YouTubers don't do sets either. All of that shouts podcast.
Except for the part where you talk about the things you're pointing at on the screen that people who are listening can't see.
Sorry.
You got to get better at your descriptions.
Oh, headphones. I'm wearing headphones. Breandan has got headphones on. Sarah's got big headphones on. Jen's headphones are hiding beneath her
I have in-ear monitors.
Bright pink hair.
I very much love the in-ear monitors. I have the same sound quality as the people with the gigantic honking headphones, but no ear pain.
Oh, cool.
2 thumbs up.
And Jillian, although you're not technically a host, you are doing the earphones.
Yep.
I gave you a bunch of rules for being on the show, and you followed them pretty well.
Follow them.
One of them was have something in your ears or on your ears, right?
Yeah,
I have moved my big honking microphone to directly in front of my mouth, for those of you who cannot tell from the audio-only podcast, just so that I can present as a podcast better.
Yeah. And if you're desperately only listening to the audio and you want to see the video at some point, on the website, I always take some screenshots from the show and stick them on the website, triangletalkshow.com. Before podcasting was a thing, there were radio people that did some kind of video thing. Howard Stern, Don Imus, may he rest in peace. Rush Limbaugh, may he soon rest in peace. Some random guys on ESPN. Has anybody heard how he's doing with his lung cancer? Is he off the air?
I don't really care.
I don't think he's off the air, because I've seen him on TV clips. So
it feels kind of heartless, but yeah, whatever. He's not.
Let me give you my best Rush Limbaugh and see if you can get this impression this time, because last time you couldn't tell if it was Alex Jones.
I got it. I just was questioning whether you meant to do Rush Limbaugh or whether you were trying to do Alex Jones and failed and ended up at Rush Limbaugh. That's all.
And I went and listened to some Alex
Angry
Jones.
right-wing radio. That's just like a general caricature.
Yep.
The only person I was sure it wasn't was Tommy Loren.
Who I don't know who that is.
You don't know Tommy Loren.
She's the woman. Blonde woman. She's the woman.
But she fell out of fashion because she made a comment, I want to say it was on The View, that she made an offhanded comment about how she feels the same way about her guns as she does her body. She is pro-choice and wants the government to keep their regulations and their hands off. And a lot of the right wing went, I'm sorry, what?
So she's conflicted. I mean, everybody gets, you can pick your side, but then you get, I'm going to make this up as a rule, you can get one exception. Everybody gets one exception.
I don't know, we've always had the 80% rule. And always consider there's more than just two sides. If you find yourself not fitting in with either side, there are other options.
You could be
34 registered parties in North Carolina, but only 3 with ballot access.
Mm-hmm. And we have fought hard for that ballot access. Thank you.
We talk about anything we want to. We aim more or less at things of interest to Breandan, this is for you. Triangularians. And for the audio audience, I'm doing the air quotes around it. Triangularians.
Oh, that was air quotes. Okay. I was going to define it as he's throwing some weird gang sign that looks
That's
very
what I
weak
was
and is
thinking.
very bad at.
Well, I don't.
I was like, is this like white boy hand signals here? What's going on?
For the audio audience, I want you to imagine like a thrown gang sign, like east side or west side, except missing it, the point entirely, and also dangling from the air like a limp spider. That would.
I don't have a lot of
Harsh,
space.
little harsh there.
I don't have a lot of space here in my picture. And if I were doing the full frame picture,
It's still air quotes are little
is-
bunny hops with your fingers.
Oh.
The
from bottom.
universal air quote.
okay, all right, I got it. I'm old. Takes me a while. Sometimes we talk local. Sometimes we get a little broader. We're going to be local today, at least for a good part of it. Pointing right at you, Durham. This is all for you. We are unfair and unbalanced. Some of us on the left-leaning side of politics. The caveat is that when Sarah's here, she occupies her own unique dimension and orbit in outer space that no other satellites have occupied.
No, there's a lot of crossover a lot of times. This is what you brought me on here to talk about in the first place. Come on, man.
That's why I put it that way, so I get pushback.
Well, I am here to provide entertainment.
And that is when we get political. I'm not sure Soil and Water is political. We'll find out. We'll definitely find out.
I got lots of electoral questions around it, but that's because I'm a politics nerd, and I'm like, that's a great office because do you know how many votes you need to win? A lot of people don't even look.
Okay. Our website is triangletalkshow.com. Our Facebook group is Triangle Talk Show. Our YouTube channel is, everybody say it with me, Triangle Talk Show. Our Twitter is, no, it's not Triangle Talk Show. It is @TalkTriangle. And podcast-wise, we are every place you want to be. Apple Music or iTunes if you're on Windows. But why would anybody use it on Windows? TuneIn. Last week, Jen, you said that you could get your show, your NannyCast, on smart speakers because you were on TuneIn.
That's right.
We're on TuneIn.
You say trigger word, play, podcast name on TuneIn. So you would say, hey Bixby, play Triangle Talk Show on TuneIn.
And you think that would work? I don't have a smart
because
speaker.
nobody's got Bixby on. But you would replace Bixby with, your local trigger word.
Yeah.
Do you
Well, you just have to make sure that you say on TuneIn.
Yeah,
if
you have
wanna
to
get
add
them
the on
to-
TuneIn at the end.
If you want it on their default server, then you got to make sure it's in Google for them, and for Amazon, they have their own store. Everybody's got their favorite.
So you might
But
be
you
able
just
to do
end
it.
this end the command with on TuneIn. So if you wanted NannyCast, you would say, hey Bixby, play NannyCast podcast on TuneIn. Oh, you have to add the word podcast. That's the other thing. Play Triangle Talk Show podcast on TuneIn.
Does it matter what we've named ourselves on TuneIn? I don't even
Presumably,
know. I don't
it
even
would
know
be
what we're called.
Triangle
I
Talk
mean-
Show.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay, everybody out there in the audience, give it a try on your Bixby. Jen feels
I'll
safe
get right
saying
on that.
Bixby. We're on Spotify, along with Michelle Obama, apparently. Apparently. Michelle's starting a podcast on Spotify. An exclusive podcast exclusively on Spotify.
Ooh.
We're on
Spotify
Got a big
tries.
truckload of money.
They're trying.
Yeah, they got an exclusive with her, with what's his name? The other guy that does big podcasts.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Does that mean I
That's
don't?
actually impressive.
Does that mean I can avoid listening to him because I don't
Yep.
want to pay for Spotify Premium? Oh, that's glorious.
I think you can still get him on Spotify regularly. You just get
I don't
commercials.
want to
But
get him. on
Spotify got a big
at
truckload of
all.
money, and they're trying to buy up as much of the ecosystem as they can to take over
That makes
podcasting and make it not podcasting anymore.
Good luck to them.
I
They're gonna have to
don't
fight
think-
with NPR over that.
Podcasting has a very low barrier to entry, so I feel like
We're there.
And the reason podcasting works is because there's a low barrier to entry, and you don't have to go through somebody like Spotify. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they want.
I mean, if they want to put Joe Rogan behind a paywall so that I don't have to listen to him, I am fine with that. They can both not have my money and I don't have to listen to Joe Rogan. I feel like I win 2 different ways.
Yeah.
And as long as Apple keeps on doing nothing, which they've been doing successfully for a couple of years with podcasts now, everything is safe because they're still, the Apple podcast client is still like 55 or 60% of all podcast listenership. So if they have that much and they just do nothing, we're all fine.
We're also on Stitcher and Google Podcasts. And now, I feel this needs a triangle hit. And now, on with the show. Our guest, Jillian Riley, 2020 candidate for Durham Soil and Water Conservation District, identifying as she, her, and hers. It could be a they as well, I think.
Yeah, they's good too.
They's good too. And your motto is a greener Durham from the roots up.
I like it.
Jen can identify with roots.
That's why I wear a wig, because this pandemic has, unlike Sarah, who has a husband who can re-dye her hair, I got nobody to re-dye my hair.
Jillian, your platform and background are detailed extensively on your website. You do a really good job of that. I think you were giving credit to your volunteers for taking care of all that stuff for you. It is JillianRiley.org. And, well, I really ought to put that on the screen for those folks who are going to watch the TV. Watching us on the TV. So, like I say, you have an extensive background here on that. So we don't need to do that much of it here because, really it would take most of the rest of the show. But I'll let you give us a little bit. Who the heck are you?
Well, I'll first say I actually created that website myself from scratch.
Oh, you did?
For the first time. I've never done web design before, and I now have a huge gratitude to the people that do it full time because blood, sweat, and tears went into that.
It's super tedious.
Yeah.
I do salute your ability to get it done, though. That's awesome.
Well, I definitely was like chatting with the web hosts and asking so many questions. So, my short and simple, my background is activism. So I've been doing environmental justice activism. There I am right there at a protest that I helped coordinate and lead. Fighting corporate pollution, fighting for clean water, fighting to support farmers in different ways. I've worked on the coast of North Carolina with people that have been impacted by hurricanes, rebuilding housing for a number of years. Anything that's community-based, that builds up communities, that strengthens communities, and that's community-led, that is pretty much where you're going to find me. That is my passion, really, is working with people on the ground to fight for local issues and make changes, arm in arm with community members. I think that's the way to get things done, which probably sounds corny, but that's the truth.
Just as I put you back on full screen, you stopped talking.
Well,
I know you could probably go on you're a politician now. You can go on for a long time.
Not a politician yet, but we'll see.
All right. So not a politician yet.
No, it's an interesting word, even than the phrase politician. I feel like it's kind of like a dirty word, politicians in DC versus like local level. It's like public servant. That's kind of where I resonate most.
Oh, but if either of those two, if you're running for political office, whether it's a fun game or not, you're already a politician. You're hoping that the people will pick you to be a public servant.
That's true. I did take the oath, even just signing my name on the dotted line to file for office. It does take a lot of responsibility to make that choice alone. I think the difference is how you lead and how you choose to be in office. And especially at the local level, if you're not a public servant doing it for the public, if you're rather this characterization of what a politician might look like, then I don't think you're doing the job right.
So you've got a handful of specific soil and water type issues that you want to take a moment to talk about? Because I got lots of other questions, but not very many of them aim for what the wheelhouse will be. So what's the soil and water deal?
Well, I'll go sort of the big picture. So you'll see on my website at jillianriley.org, I have 3 main platform points. So one, it's sustainabilities in schools. So the soil and water team has actually historically done one project that has worked with Southern High School to do a conservation project that ends up saving the school district $15,000 a year on water. That is major, and it's something that we can replicate. So right now, the soil and water team is just in the beginning stages of doing this very similar project in water conservation at Riverside High School. So I've talked extensively with the staff about that project, and I believe that we can do similar projects like this if we build our relationships with the Durham Board of Education, with the county commissioners, with the city council, right? This isn't something that we can do by ourselves, but we can definitely do in collaboration with students, teachers, parents, administrators. The second point I have is going to be innovation in agriculture, which is kind of my fun way of saying hemp is the future. So North Carolina is in a pilot program right now for the past 3 years on hemp agriculture. So hemp is part of the cannabis plant. It's a kind of a cousin to marijuana, and it's completely legal, and it doesn't have any THC. You can't get high off of hemp. But what you can do is you can make it into clothing. You can make it into olive oils. It has healing, benefits. It's amazingly sustainable for the environment and the soil as well. And so we're in this pilot program right now, but we need to make sure that Durham, whether that's from an agricultural farming standpoint or even from a business standpoint in processing hemp into different products, is on the forefront of what's going on. And if down the road, marijuana is legalized, I can see that these hemp farms could also be turned into, full frontal cannabis farms in all different aspects. And I think as Durham, as a leader in the progressive leader in North Carolina, we need to be on the forefront of that as well. And the last one before we get to questions is just protecting clean water. So like I said, my background's in fighting corporate pollution. You talked about the Ellerby Creek Trail, or Ellerby Creek that you passed earlier. I mean, that's a major issue and pollutant that many people know about. But petroleum leakage and spills are one of the reasons why the creek is so polluted, along with other things. And so making sure that we protect clean water, because the Ellerby Creek, for example, runs into the Falls Lake Reservoir, which is Durham's main primary water source. So if we're going in after the fact to clean up the water, how much money does that take, right? Versus starting on the front end and making sure that we are making smart choices before we have to go back and clean it up. So those are my 3 points.
Are you familiar with the Beaver Queen Festival pageant?
No, but should I be?
Oh, yes.
You should be.
I'd love it.
They're a lot of fun.
They raise money to protect the Ellerby Creek watershed.
Oh, awesome.
I was trying to remember if it was Ellerby Creek or if it was another one, but I think you're right. I think it was.
And they do fabulous costumes and fundraisers and stuff. It's awesome.
Yes, it's a pageant, but you are not a human. It's not a human pageant. It's a beaver pageant. So humans are dressing up as going cross species as beavers, who are then dressing up to be pageant queens.
Yeah, I have bad news for you, Jen. The Star Trek themed one.
I know.
Beaverly Crusher and
Beaverly Crusher.
Yeah, they did not win.
I know.
They won something.
Is this an online event?
This year it was. Usually it's in person.
I should go back and watch that. I'm all about a good costume.
Yeah, you'll see on a previous episode of the Triangle Talk Show, but they're definitely their own thing. So, but that's one way to find it.
I was very much in favor of Beaverly Crusher because it just tickled my nerd nerve. And the voting is not done fair or balanced. It is done by bribes. So if you as a Beaver candidate can get your supporters to bribe the judges with the most money, you win.
So the Electoral College, is that what I heard?
Similar. So the only thing I know about hemp I mean, I was sort of familiar with some of the things you were saying, but in North Carolina, and because of the tie-in with marijuana, and because marijuana is evil, hemp's got a bad rap.
Mm-hmm. It does have a bad rep. People, so first of all, it looks and smells exactly like a marijuana plant. So if you can picture the sort of thin green leaves, that's what it looks like. And I've talked with hemp farmers, close to Durham County, who have basically been like, people have stopped by their neighbors and been like, what are you growing? Right. So it could definitely sort of upset.
Why aren't you sharing? Come on.
What are you growing? Here, you can have some. Good luck.
Don't bogart that hemp.
Well, and yeah, so it can definitely sort of strike a nerve with folks enough to get them to yell kind of angrily at you from their car, from their car. But the truth is, like, it's a very different plant, right? I would say that a lot of plants have green leaves, right, and maybe look similar, but they're not the same.
They're cousins. Was it a breeding thing where someone deliberately went to? It's like sweet tea and unsweet tea to me. How do you get the sugar out?
It's a varietal. So they're different, like, varieties of the same. It's the cannabis plant, but you've got cannabis sativa, cannabis ruderalis, and cannabis indica, and they all have different levels of THC or CBD. Some are better for fiber and for stalk. So the ones that we use as hemp are just the ones that are particularly low in THC. Sometimes they're very high in CBD and they're used for medicinal purposes. Sometimes they're used purely for their use as a fiber stock. I know at one point North Carolina was the top supplier of hemp rope to the Navy.
Yeah,
because we've got such good soil for hemp farms in general.
I was about to pop in with that little fact about hemp ropes, and I know that sisal ropes are they're the ropes du jour for cat trees. I see one in Jillian's background. By the way, those of you on the audio only podcast do not see a cat tree, but you can imagine a cat tree. Hemp can be used as a replacement for that sisal rope for cat trees to make cat trees more sustainable, because you just replace the rope after the cats shred it, rather than having to replace the whole cat tree.
Yeah, so the thing, and y'all mentioned this beautifully, is that there are regulations around THC levels that are very strictly mandated by the state. So they will literally come out to your farm and check to see the levels. And if for some reason they surpass, I think it's 0.5%, they will burn your crops down.
Mm-hmm.
And for the record, 0.5% is lower than the amount of alcohol allowed in non-alcoholic beverages, in zero alcohol beverages. So that's
and there's also
than O'Doul's alcohol level.
And this has played into why for a while it was impossible for our farmers to be able to get crop insurance, because the insurer said that's way too big of a risk. They can just come and burn your entire crop because you don't have enough experience being able to grow it. Because it's not just what seeds you're using, but what they've learned is it also has to do with the soil that you're growing it in. And when you have a new plant that your farmers are learning how our particular soil reacts with that, it might take a couple of years of growing in order to get exactly what you're going for. But that might cost a lot of money if you have to burn your crop.
On the other hand, if we just go ahead and legalize marijuana, we can pull in more tax. Well, more, I don't know, would it be a tax or a duty? We can pull in more money anyway, and more people would be happy. Fewer people would go to jail, and also hemp farmers benefit. I feel like this is a no-brainer.
Oh, and tourism from the rest of the South.
So just a little aside, I was looking through Reddit the other day, and somebody up in Durham.
I'm so sorry.
Somebody said, I'm from California. I'm just here for a week or so. Is there anywhere? And I know that it's not legal in North Carolina, but is there anybody who can, give me a pointer or so? And because I'm from North California, you can just walk down the street and buy some. And he got a lot of, dude, this is not the right place to ask. You're not going to get an answer.
Not the right venue, guy.
There's a lot of very helpful non-lawyers on Reddit who keep pointing out that the Fifth Amendment is your friend. And so when you blatantly advertise certain illegal behavior, they're just like, hey, you might not want to do that. Yeah. Because police can access the same as anybody else can. So maybe this is not the thing you want to do. There was a guy in Raleigh who was constantly advertising an illegal poker game. And I will say, there's probably a Karen in the group, but most of us didn't care. We did care that he maybe not get arrested for his like blatant advertising. And so across multiple weeks, people just gently suggested maybe he doesn't want to put his address on the post.
There's some slight variations here.
And he would always push back very, very aggressively. And then all of a sudden they vanished very quickly. And that was because the Raleigh police were like, hey, this is cool. This is going to be an easy bust.
They made it easy for us.
Well, let's go check it out.
So, how did you land on Soil and Water Commissioner as a target of your incipient political intent? Because, I mean, you've been involved in stuff for a long time now. This is your first step into electoral politics. How did you decide soil and water?
You know, I feel like people have kind of been sort of nudging me to run for office. I mean, I'm 28 years old. I would say probably since I was like 22, maybe, people have been sort of pushing me that way. And even just 6 years ago, the amount of women that were in office was so much lower. You know, this was like, you know, Hillary Clinton was just, you know, beginning to, you know, go after the presidency. And it definitely still was this kind of like me, like I'm too young, you know, people won't take me seriously. I have really long hippie hair and, you know, I also dye it different colors. Like I just didn't think that I really fit the mold like I should. And I would notice, this is kind of an aside, I would notice that women who were in office or on TV all had like short, straight, blonde hair, like literally Hillary Clinton. And I was like, do I need to cut my hair and like dye it? And so, you know, I've thought about it for a while. And then as I've been inspired by the women that have run, especially, you know, when Trump was elected and the number of like congresswomen and local women that have been running really inspired me. But then, yeah, the question is kind of like, where am I needed? That was my question, really. I feel like in Durham, it's such a hotbed of politics. I mean, everyone is just like going for it. And I feel like there's a lot of power grabs that go down and people that have been climbing the ladder, as you would say, in politics and been waiting their turn. And I'm just really not about that. I'm not about waiting your turn. I'm not about sort of playing by the rules and it's like the bureaucracy within just the running for office. Then you get to public office and then there's a lot of bureaucracy within that. And so, you know, for me, it was like, well, my skill set is community organizing. My background has been in environmental work. And I feel like soil and water is this under the radar election that doesn't get a ton. We've had some great people that have been, you know, in office. Danielle Adams has been in office for 12 years and she's not running for re-election. So that's the seat I'm going after. But I want to bring a lot more attention to it, right? I don't want it to be under the radar. I want to make some waves. And I want people to realize that this is the Environmental Board of Durham, right? There's this huge movement, the Sunrise Movement. There's, you know, the Green New Deal. There's all this talk about national, you know, environmentalism. And I'm like, this is it in Durham, y'all. Like, this is what it is. And we can make change at the local level. There's a ton of, you know, things that happen at the state level that we can't necessarily change because of how the NCGA has taken away local municipality power. But that doesn't mean we can't move some needles, you know? And so for me, it was like, I'm into environmental things and I'm tired of this position just sort of getting swept under the rug, and I want to make some waves. So, and it's COVID. So I was like, what else? I mean, it's crazy. I was like, I guess I could just run a digital campaign, you know, and wear masks everywhere I go in the middle of this global pandemic. And then of course the second wave of the civil rights movement happens. And so it's, you know, it's been a crazy, crazy campaign that, you know, things that maybe I wasn't expecting, but we've been rolling with it for sure.
How many people are you running against?
Another benefit to have people who are in the local government offices that are for the progressive movements or for change in the right directions in terms of environmental issues, depending on how the election goes at the state level this fall, it may suddenly open the gates for action on local levels. So if you are in there and ready to move, it can really help facilitate quick action and quick response to some of these things that you and I care so much about.
Yeah, and I'll be blunt. Like, if we flip some seats at the General Assembly, we cannot waver, right? Because they will have a plan, and I'm speaking strictly as a Democrat here and as a progressive. Like, Republicans will have a plan, and they will do everything they can to take back power. So I'm like, we can't just sit around and sort of twiddle our thumbs and be like, what should we do now? Like, no, we need to get moving.
So soil and water is the spot you're aiming for, but you are pan political. You're looking at all the seats and all the levels. You're aware of them, what's going on.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if this is a stepping off point for you. If this is the first, your first entry, and then you have grand design after that. Although, as you said, you don't want to play the political game. Well, that sounds like a career limiting move.
Yeah, people also keep asking me that question. I would say I have a 4-year plan, and that's being in office for the next 4 years, because it's a 4-year term. Beyond that, it just depends what I can get done in 4 years. I feel like it seems like a long time, and then we think about how slow things move. And 4 years actually, I don't know how much. I'll do my best, but in terms of, building collaboration with, with other local governments and local elected officials, it sort of relies on their willingness to move as well.
Is the Soil and Water Commission a concentrated seat of power?
No, I would say it kind of runs like a nonprofit. We build partnerships with local farmers, and we help make sure that things like soil erosion don't impact the quality of water in Durham. So I don't think it's a huge position of power, but I definitely think it's an underutilized elected position.
Do you make regulations?
No, that's all at the Department of Environmental Quality, which is like the state level EPA. So there's the, General Assembly, and then there's DEQ, and they are the ones to really make the regulations. But what you can do is you can advocate. And so being able to kind of work up the ladder using that even small local position of power to say, these are the issues going on at the local level. These are the issues that are going on in Durham. And talking with folks like Secretary Regan, who is the appointed person in charge of DEQ, I think can really make a difference. And I've been able to have actually conversations with him through my past organizing and activism work, about environmental issues, and obviously, about coal ash issues, which is what I've done in the past.
So this is a representation position where you are being asked to represent the best interests of the people voting for you rather than to dictate to them how they need to be.
I was going to ask if you can throw people into soil and water jail.
No, it's all voluntary. We work a lot with people in the city of Durham too. Just the amount of pesticides and, things that people put on their lawn to make it greener, and things people put on their flower beds and gardens. And all of that just leads into urban runoff, which is a huge problem. And so we're not going to, dictate what people can and can't use on their lawns. But if people are interested, they can go to, Durham Soil and Water, and they can learn about safe levels of chemicals to use on their lawns to help reduce their, household's impact on urban runoff and how that impacts, like I said, water quality overall.
And if they want to reduce their food budget, they should just let their lawn go into a natural meadow, and they can forage in their lawn for things to supplement their food.
Or if they're like me and they don't really care about the lawn, but they want the curb appeal, we have drought-resistant grass that the previous homeowner planted, and we don't fertilize, we don't do anything to it, we mow it, and it grows about 3 inches a week or 4 inches a week, and it's very even, and it's a huge pain to keep it mowed, but it's green and it's pretty all summer long, and we do nothing to it.
Depending on the zoning, people might not be allowed to let their yard turn into a free meadow there. They may still run into a different arm of the government that will sanction them.
I'm luckily in one of the parts of Cary that is actually free in that respect. We don't have HOAs, we don't have zoning, we don't have any of those strictures placed upon us. So I enjoy that aspect.
That's an interesting decision to make when you're trying to decide where to live. It's like, all right,
especially Cary.
What authority am I under?
Cary is not known for their lack of burdensome regulation.
I was going to say you're in about a 3-square block area that's like that. I think is there controversy within Soil and Water? Are there different positions, advocacy from one side to another, or is everybody pretty much on the same page?
That's a good question. I would say, right now the board is sort of all on the same page. The board chair is a farmer, and he definitely brings I think a useful and unique perspective. And particularly if we're going to work with farmers, how do farmers interact with the programs and what's most useful? It is a nonpartisan position, which is interesting to me because there's no primary, right? This is why it's all happening now. In Durham, it's mostly all Democrats. So, all the local elected officials and the positions all get decided in the primaries.
So how do you become a candidate?
It costs $5. Yep. Yeah.
That's
it's super cheap. It's based off of how much the position makes, which is about, I think, $15 a month. So I'm basically applying for the biggest volunteer job of my life.
So this won't be a full-time.
The specific statute says that you have to pay, the filing fee is 1% of the annual income or $5, whichever one is more.
So that's where I'm at, $5. Pretty easy to do. The biggest thing is definitely just the campaign finance laws of North Carolina, which are terribly confusing. And there's this really bad online training you have to do that I did.
Oh, no, are you being your own treasurer?
No, I do have my own treasurer, thank God, because I was like, I don't know if I could sort of shuffle through all these online notes about it. But that's it. Yeah, $5. And you open up a bank account that says that you're a political candidate, and you can run for office in Durham. This for Soil and Water.
How many other people are running for this office?
So there's 5 of us total.
For one seat? For
one seat, yep.
Ooh, tough competition.
What are you? How's the polling going?
No polling as of yet. But I would say it is kind of like I said, Durham is a hotbed for politics. So if there's going to be an open seat that opens up, regardless of what it is, people are going to put their name in and try to go for it. But yeah, it's kind of a fun race, especially because it's, like I said, because it's a COVID election. So how different candidates are adjusting to that, we'll see.
So are you accusing some of your competition as being non-serious?
No, I'm not accusing them. I'm saying in general, I think Durham candidates, I'm accusing past candidates of other elections of doing that.
I'm just trying to gin up the media controversy here. I
know you are. I know. I'm trying my best not to.
That's my job. So you don't need to collect signatures or anything like that. You just $5 and you're on the ballot.
Yeah, pretty much anyone can do it. I think it's kind of like if you've ever thought about running for office, but you're not really sure, you can just put your name out there and, you'll be on the not anymore. The filing deadline has passed, but it's definitely, it's definitely kind of an easy way, I feel like, to begin to build your political, name recognition.
Okay. So this is your stepping off point.
This is not my stepping off point, but if you wanted it to be, it would be easy because it's pretty cheap.
Okay. How do you rate yourself compared to the competition at this point? You're obviously far more qualified.
I don't look them up. I just try to stay in my own lane, and I know what I know, and I have my experience, and I don't make anything up, and I just I just go out there and I talk to folks, and I have a whole team of volunteers that also are doing digital online work, and my competition might be doing the exact same thing I am. I have no idea, but I try to stay in my own lane.
You're not doing any oppo.
No, it makes me nervous. You know what I mean? I like to just, like I said, stay focused. And I feel like I don't want to change my message based off of anyone else's message, because what I've developed and my platform that I've developed is through conversations and talking with people, not just in Durham, but all over the state based off environmental issues. I don't personally, when I picked hemp as an issue, it wasn't because I personally am a hemp grower. It's because I've personally talked with folks that are growing and people that have wanted to, and people that understand the sustainability aspect. And so I'm developing a platform based off of the community, not based off of my own wants and needs and desires.
And the position is a county-wide position. It's not like a district within Durham County, right?
No, yeah. So it's the entire county of Durham, which definitely gets lost. I live in the city, and city residents, I feel like can try to take all the focus when it comes to elections. But this is definitely, it's not just about people who live in urban areas, but it's about people who live in rural areas too.
This is the very definition of down ballot.
Yeah.
I mean, like way down ballot. Do you come in above or below circuit court judges?
Probably below.
School board. Way below school board.
This is like you have to turn the page a couple times to get to me. Yeah.
So how do you go about A, attracting attention, and B, getting anybody to go that far down the ballot and recognize your name? Enough people to make a difference, to win.
Well, I'm at the farmer's market every single weekend. I've been doing that for...
Jen couldn't get in 3 weeks ago.
No, I went to the Durham Black Farmers Market as opposed to just the regular...
Oh, there's a regular farmer's market.
/ white farmer's market.
Okay.
Yeah, the Durham Black Farm, it's, there's a lot of outpouring of support right now for Black businesses. And there was I waited in line for like an hour and a half and then eventually went home because I didn't think they would have anything left because I had probably another hour to wait.
Yeah, that's what Jen found. They're popular. They're doing good. Okay, so... I was
very happy to see so much support for them.
So
they're going to get sold out for sure. Yeah. Sorry, Gary, I keep interrupting you.
No, I keep interrupting you. So what is your outreach?
Yeah, so I'm at the farmers markets every single Saturday from 8:30 to about 11:30. And it's very hot and I get sunburnt every time.
They make this stuff you can put on.
I put it on and, it just like sweats off into my eyes and then my eyes are burning. So it's just a fun little game I have every Saturday morning.
Having an excess of hair, I have taken wearing hats outside. Wide-brimmed hats.
Big floppy hat.
Yeah.
Being a very limited hair, I also wear big floppy brimmed hats, but I think it's more acceptable for a nice Southern belle lady to have a floppy brimmed hat on.
Yeah, I feel like people can't see my face if I wear a hat, to be honest, because I have a mask on already. It's like you already can't see like this much of my face.
Yeah, that's true.
That's fair.
So don't let us chase you down rabbit holes here. Well,
we're wanting to do that.
Inevitable. Again, how are you reaching out to the community? Is this the first media you've been invited to? Podcast, WRAL, Channel 11?
This is the first media. And I've had a couple others reach out. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm definitely hoping to do more video interviews and radio interviews to be able to talk with folks. But it's a local election, so I can't pay for, an ad in the newspaper or something like that. I just don't have the budget for it.
You could, but you can't afford to.
Right. I think there's other ways to spend the money. And so like paying for my website and things like that.
I'm trying to remember how I found you. I think it was on Facebook. I think somebody linked to something and ended up on my Facebook page.
Well, that's exactly what I want to hear.
I think that's how I should have been paying more attention.
Yeah, I have 9 interns. I have 9 student interns from Duke University and North Carolina Central University that are all doing online organizing. So my background obviously is grassroots organizing, so sort of literally in person. But my team is online organizers and graphic design artists and media people who are, or not media people, but multimedia, able to do videos and things like that. So yeah, we're running, I would say, a pretty strong digital campaign, both on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, well, we'll see how that works. I'm curious. I mean, you recognize that it's an invisible office.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough, I think the biggest challenge is definitely just people don't know about it, right? People don't know what it is, what it does, how important it is. And, you know, at the end of the day, they're just going to either pick a name or leave it blank. So the goal is to just get that much more name recognition. So when they see that, they'll say, I don't know who this girl is, but I recognize that name, Jillian Riley.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think Wake County has a breakout soil and water political superstar. I think the name that's coming to me is Jenna Wadsworth, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's her.
Okay, and she started Soil and Water, and now she's going for what?
Commissioner of Agriculture.
Whoa, that's a step.
Yeah,
because that's
Troxler. To the top.
That's Jim Graham territory, right?
That's related. I mean, it's related experience.
It's related, but it's like this far apart.
Listen, go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if you've managed to make a name out of yourself there, then why would you stop? Try and leverage it at least.
I think she was also elected in when she was 21 years old. So she's probably been doing it for 10 years now. So
yeah.
Okay, so it can take you somewhere. It's not the back Soil and Water that I'm making it out to be necessarily.
I mean, they do important work. She just told you all the important work they do.
Well, yeah, but nobody pays attention to that.
Nobody knows about it, so.
So I will say, though I am not in Durham, so I cannot vote for you, sadly. I love the kind of positions that, like the kind you're running for. Those positions are very, very important to me, and those are the ones I really pay the most attention to, because they're the ones that most directly impact my life as a just average citizen. You know, I'm the one who's going to have the house with the lawn. It is in my pocket. It's in my bedroom. It's in my yard. It's, that. So thank you. Thank you for wanting the position, taking it seriously, wanting it for what it is, rather than just seeing it as, a hoop to jump through. I really appreciate the seriousness you've brought to it. And I love the fact that your campaigning is looking at it in terms of an environmental issue, because it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's kind of the heart and soul of it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I like drinking water and not getting sick because of it. So, and we're downstream from you guys. So becomes.
And I like growing food in my backyard and being able to eat it and not get poisoned. So, little things.
Yeah.
All things, eating, drinking.
I mean, just breathing's next. So.
Yeah.
So hopefully this show is giving you the Triangle Talk Show bump. And not killing your campaign entirely. Do you know what position you are in of the 5 candidates on the ballot? Is your name at the top?
I'm pretty sure it's random every time.
Yeah, don't they randomize it every time they print the ballot?
Yeah, it varies because otherwise it does give a bias towards whoever's at the top of the ballot, especially in offices that people don't tend to research. But I know North Carolina, they'll just randomize it. So it depends on who gets the ballot.
I think there was a lawsuit at one point about that.
Okay. So, this will help people who are going to vote to know what to expect.
Everybody, please vote. Please vote.
And where do we stand on vote by mail versus that's not a good idea?
Don't get COVID and vote.
Vote early, vote often. I mean, just vote early.
Yeah, I'm from Chicago. I can do that.
No COVID, just voting.
Jillian, do you have a platform on vote by mail?
I'm a fan of getting so you can request a mail-in ballot and still vote in person. So I think it's important to have a backup plan this election. And so I plan on requesting my mail-in ballot, and we'll hopefully do actually a little video about that, just because it's so new to North Carolina and new to Durham. So stay tuned for that. But I'm definitely a fan of having a backup plan this election, because I don't think that what we've seen so far of other elections during COVID, things get pulled out at the last minute that try to have our voter suppression things. And so we need to make sure that we have a plan, and then we have another plan, because we don't know what will happen.
In Durham, at least in years past, because I used to work in Durham, and then would go and hang out in the Durham public libraries after work, I did see a lot of in-person voter intimidation. Durham is pretty strong on that one. So very helpful for Durham to have a backup plan.
I believe it was Durham that tossed the election to Cooper last time, and it was only by a couple hundred votes. It was really tight. So
yeah,
voting
very
matters,
contested.
Folks. It's really important to vote this, especially this year.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Well, good luck. We'll see if anybody else from the Durham Soil and Water race wants a shot here on the Triangle Talk Show. Email talk@triangletalkshow.com, and we'll see. But we're starting high, so I got plenty of room to expand both directions. Jillian, you're welcome to stick around for the rest of the show.
Well, thanks, y'all. I actually have to jump on another call. There's a huge strike tomorrow for Black Lives for the Fight for 15. So I'm marshaling that event. And so I got to jump on the training call.
Where's that going to be?
It's going to be downtown Durham, in front of the McDonald's, kind of like behind the YMCA area. So, but they're going to be happening technically all over the U.S. So there's probably going to be one in Raleigh as well.
And that's tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon.
I never hear about these things in advance. Some guys broke into the old Durham police headquarters, which I believe is empty right now.
Yeah.
As a general activist, where are you on? Obviously all the protest stuff is important. I'm a big fan of that. Where are you on people breaking into things like that?
Well, people are going to have frustration, right? We have to remember that, especially around police brutality, it's not just because of George Floyd. It's not just because of the past couple of months events, but it's because of historic racism and oppression. It's because of the trauma that's been passed down through generations and generations, beginning when Africans were, kidnapped and taken as slaves. And so for me, I think, and I'm not just an activist, I'm also a social worker. So I'm getting my master's of social work right now at UNC Chapel Hill. I'm a grad student, living off student loans. But so I also believe that people, this country has not been taken care of from an emotional standpoint, a mental health standpoint, a restorative justice standpoint, a healing justice. And so we're going to have issues like this when people are, breaking into things. The reality is, like, breaking a building, what is that compared to a life, right? I think that we compare oftentimes someone or a group of people breaking a window when, it's not comparable to whenever a person is shot and murdered in the street by, a gun policeman. And so for me, it really doesn't bother me that much. And I think it is a bigger issue, a systemic issue that we have going on in the country that needs to be addressed. It's not about whether or not people are allowed to break windows. It's about whether or not we're going to address historic trauma.
All right. Good. Excellent
people
statement.
Aren't inclined to break windows.
Right.
Jillian Riley, candidate for Durham Soil and Water Commission.
District.
Okay, I had that down for a second. Your website is Jillian Riley, JILLIANRILEY.org. You do take campaign contributions too, right?
Yes, definitely. We got some campaign yard signs to buy, so please contribute if you're able.
Okay, I'm going to let you go, but you might want to stick around because this is, wait a minute, not that. Where to go? Well, this is the next thing we're going to do. And I don't know if you're familiar with this or not. The Burger King cow farts commercial.
I am not familiar, but it has been a pleasure, y'all. I'm going to let you go, but I really appreciate you having me on and getting some good conversation.
Yeah. If you want to fill us in on, what's going on next, drop me a line and we'll bring you back.
Okay, I definitely will.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I
I think, yeah, there's here. Okay. So, yeah, let's, we didn't get a takedown for last weekend when we did. I can't find the button that puts me on screen. And the audio audience doesn't care. We didn't get any takedowns for all the music that we played. I did get demonetized, and I haven't gone to fight that yet because we were definitely within our legitimate First Amendment, fair use territory in commentary, and I may go do that, but.
Ian Corzine, your social media lawyer, would love to take that case. There's a guy on YouTube whose name is Ian Corzine, and his tagline is "Your social media lawyer," and he really is a lawyer who specializes in dealing with takedowns, copyright claims, copyright strikes, and all the other fun stuff of the digital age. And he's done a whole video on fair use, critique, and criticism. So.
Well, I've been successful so far in each of the fights that I've had. Whenever I've had a very early on, it was takedown. After that, it just became monetized. But whenever I thought I had a good fair use defense, I would dispute and I would win. So I may do that just for the fun. But on the other hand, we use people's music.
They deserve the money.
If they can get any money out of other people watching the Triangle Talk Show, I'm not going for any money off of it. So what the heck? I don't think Burger King is going to complain that we play their commercial. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. Nope.
They should pay us for giving them free advertising.
They should.
When cows fart and burp and splatter, well, it ain't no laughing matter. They're releasing methane every time they do. And that methane from the rear goes up to the atmosphere and pollutes our planet, warming me and you.
This is not a parody. This is a real commercial.
Is this advertising the Impossible Whopper? Because I have one in my dining room right now.
It is not.
Gee, is it hot in here or is it just me? So to change their emissions, Burger King went on a mission, testing diets that would help reduce their farts. That's a start. And now there ain't no question that it's helping cows' digestion, adding lemongrass so they can play their part. Woo-hoo. Reducing methane, and the scientists have proven that it works.
And it's open source.
Did they just say that when they feed their cows actual grass, that the cows don't fart as much as when they feed
lemongrass?
Lemongrass.
Specifically, they figured out adding lemongrass to the diet reduces.
Oh, this is going to make it very hard for me to get lemongrass seeds come next garden, isn't it?
I don't know. We'll have to see. It depends on how widely it's adopted by other farmers.
This is a really bizarre commercial, though.
I mean, they could have gone to this being the Impossible Whopper ad, but they didn't.
And that's good, but it was weird.
Instead, they sang about lemongrass, which is my tea, and I grow it to be my tea. Now they're feeding it to cows when they could just replace cows altogether.
Yeah. So the deal is adding lemongrass to the diet in some magic formula, which is free and open source, so anybody can learn this stuff. McDonald's, if you want to try this. Apparently in the last couple of months, 3 months, 4 months of, because there's some disclaimers on here. I should.
So they're giving the cows tea that the cows have to make themselves in their stomach.
Yeah.
But it reduces their methane output. That's
well, sure.
Idea.
So I'm trying to freeze frame this, but I'm getting a line across it, so it's a little bit hard. Whopper sandwiches with reduced methane emissions, beef. So it's not the Impossible; it's the beef to be sold.
Restaurants.
Yeah, select restaurants. Los Angeles. While supplies last. Yeah, Austin, Los Angeles, Miami, New York City, and Portland. So that's not going to be around here. And let's see.
But we still have the Impossible Whoppers around here. You can have a Whopper with reduced methane emissions because there was no cow at all.
Well, but the real test of this is going to be the question of, do they taste the same? Which, I mean, I assume that they, for the most part, would. It's still cow. But I know, just lemony. Having bought ridiculously priced, meat because they were like treated well their entire life and fed grass and allowed to like frolic free and then blindfolded and told to look the other direction before they were slaughtered. What you feed your animals does affect the outcome of the flavor, but that's interesting that at the end they clarified it's only going to be in specific areas.
Just so
they're going to have.
I would also argue that people don't buy Whoppers because of the taste of the beef. They're not like.
It doesn't mean it won't be a PR issue.
True,
it's all PR.
Point of fact, they came out with the Impossible Whopper. For those listeners who do not know, I have alpha-gal, which is the tick-borne disease, illness, condition. I'm not really sure because I get into the weeds on the specifics of what words mean. So I'm not sure which word you would use for alpha-gal, but it means that I have allergic reactions to eating meat. So I cannot eat a regular Whopper. But I can eat an Impossible Whopper because it does not have the sugar I'm allergic to, the alpha-galactose sugar in it. And because the Impossible brand, I think they call them alt meats now. They don't. That's not a component that they reproduced out of regular meat when they made these alt meats. So I have been a huge proponent of these Impossible Whoppers, and I did at one point find a friend who eats a lot of fast food, is a meat eater, and because I have no way of doing a side-by-side comparison. So he did a side-by-side comparison. And his mention was, yeah, actually, it turns out when he had the regular Whopper versus the Impossible Whopper, which he phrased as diet meat, just like diet soda tastes ever so slightly off from regular soda, even though it's all chemicals, he said the Impossible Whopper tasted like diet meat. It just tasted lighter. It didn't taste...
I've had both.
He said it didn't taste less... Like all the flavors were there, they just felt lighter, he said. So he called it diet meat. So it turns out... It does
seem artificially put together. Like, that's the weirdest thing, is you're looking at it, you're like, this is just too consistent. Like, ground beef is not like that.
Maybe that's it. He said that the mouth chew was slightly off, and like on his tongue, the flavors were too evenly distributed, and that made them taste lighter. But turns out, because of that experience, he then concluded that people do actually buy Whoppers for their taste. They just don't realize it until they don't get that taste.
Oh, I do.
I guess.
I get Whoppers about once a week these days, and I get the $10 hamburger at not Angus Barn, Abbey Road, and a few of the other places, and I like the Whopper better.
Fair enough.
Whatever,
you like what you like.
Whatever they put into it. I mean, when you get the half-pound, $10, $13 hamburger, and I get them rare, really rare, so you can still taste the beef. There's still some flavor left in it. That's I guess that's better. But I like the flavor of a Whopper, and you can't get them rare.
Well, it's good that we have different ways of coming at the same issue, because as much as I love your radical solutions, Jen, not everybody is going to stop eating meat. And just medically, like, there are some people who really are going to still need to be able to have access to at least a little bit of meat in order to be healthy. So if we can have lower emission cows, well, that's at least a step in the right direction. If you can't necessarily, and it's not even to say you can't, but you shouldn't say that the only solution is reducing the entire stock of cows if you can make them less damaging to the environment.
I was just offering the triangle a solution, since we are not in the test market for these lemongrass fed cows. So if you feel strongly about, and you're not medically required to eat cow beef, and you feel strongly about, environmental emissions, we do have an option on the table. It's not the same option, but it is an option, and you might want to consider it.
I understand that these things are the Impossible Burgers and stuff. They're not any better for you.
No, they're the same thing, except they don't have alpha galactose in it, which has no effect on the human body anyway, unless you've been bitten by a tick, in which case then that'll kill you. But
particular tick with a particular tick-borne illness.
Yeah, I've been bitten by ticks.
Yeah. the specific tick, and of its species, it has to be one of the pathogenic ones, because
I'm still waiting for my spider powers.
I won essentially a human doesn't get struck by lightning lottery with the tick. Yay!
Yay! Good, congratulations.
Yeah. It's non-curable at the moment, but it turns out that one of the leading researchers on the topic also has the condition, so he's personally motivated to get that handled.
Approximately 33% reduction on average of methane emissions per day during the last 3 to 4 months of the cow's life. That's the other tiny mouse type disclaimer about this. This is a PR campaign. I think almost exclusively a PR campaign.
Look,
it's true that they mentioned it's only the last 3 to 4 months. It's only while Burger King is actually in possession of the cows, or Burger King's farms are.
I don't know how
still has no control over the livestock.
Burger King suppliers.
Yeah.
I don't know how old a cow gets before they slaughter it.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is nothing. This is. There's nothing here.
And I'm an enthusiastic meat eater. Like I'm not the type who wants everybody to change their diets out of principle. But honestly, Americans can probably do with eating a third the amount of meat that they eat and be healthier and be happier and be better for everything. But I know that's also a relatively unrealistic goal to try to push on people, because people generally don't want to stop eating meat.
I mean, I think culturally, if we expanded the varieties of meat that we consider acceptable, that would help a lot too. I mean, a lot of people who will eat beef and even chicken, but like rabbit is delicious, super healthy, and really hard to find, surprisingly, even though it's a very cheap animal. Well, let's say aside from the eastern cottontails, and there's a whole make sure they don't have parasites issue if you're hunting.
They're sustainable.
Yeah, they're easy to sustain. I mean, they're a great backyard animal.
Just ask Elmer Fudd.
That's why Australia imported them, and now they've built a fence about them, because they imported them and they were so sustainable that they just bred so much that Australia put a fence down the middle of its island, of its continent that's also an island, to keep the rabbits on the left side from going to the right side and vice versa.
Did Mexico pay for it?
No, the emus did, I believe.
It's interesting to see the things that we decide, we all have culturally this line that's drawn between these are meat animals and these are cute pet animals and these are wild animals. And it's actually, I mean, if you're going to eat meat, then you should be able to consider, what are the different impacts of all the different, sources of meat there. And are you at least making sure to have the best impact on the environment overall? And it's not just I was raised on cows, so cows are the best. Cows are cute too.
I'm in a variety of different study groups on Zoom thanks to the pandemic, and on Tuesdays there's a food study group, and our food study group consists of us eating popcorn and watching episodes of Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, and we just did a double last Tuesday. We did a double header of episodes that featured cooked rabbit. So it's one of those moments where I'm like, yes, speaking of cooked rabbit, I have been in this world all week, because then we've been emailing each other rabbit recipes ever since.
So yeah, if we want to see real progress, I want to see the Burger King rabbit burger.
Well, also the most sustainable source of animal protein on Earth is insects. And culturally, that is something that's never going to happen in this country.
Cricket burger.
Is this a great time for me to rep Bugfest? Because
Cricket burger.
I am
Bugfest
very
is
excited.
awesome.
I volunteered at Bugfest every year for the past, what's 22 minus 6, that many years, because I need 22 t-shirts to make a twin-size t-shirt quilt, and I'm 6 away. And they give you a t-shirt every time you volunteer at Bugfest. So Bugfest has a cafe insecta, and you can go and you can taste cooked insect. And with the exception of the cinnamon sugar crickets, which are literally crickets that have been sprinkled with cinnamon sugar and like fried a little bit, everything else is fully processed insect protein. So you would never know. Like
now, oh my goodness, the internet tells me that we do in fact have insect burgers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're all eating
Oh,
insects.
no, on
We just
purpose.
don't know.
Apparently,
Burger King?
IKEA did a whole thing. IKEA did at least. So, they're,
okay.
Burger
Not
King
at
isn't even
Burger
at the
King.
edge here.
Maybe a Chick-fil-A.
But maybe we don't give them credit until we see something that's you don't just get credit for virtue signaling, like we're saying. You have to show us the insect burgers.
But I was going to say, I think we're all eating eating insects. We just don't know it.
Oh yeah,
We don't know
plenty
the
of
quantity.
extra added protein. You eat what? 8 spiders a night? No, 8 spiders a year? 8 spiders a
I
month?
think it's a year, but
It's also if you've literally seen how sausage is made, not the political reference, but the actual like the process of somebody making a sausage. All kinds of stuff gets in there.
Yep.
That's
And it's
also in the
still
Anthony
delicious.
Bourdain rabbit episodes. He makes sausages in those same episodes.
I think I would try a rabbit burger at Burger King.
But it's no,
Bambi burgers are good too. I mean, and that's a
What burger?
I've
Bambi burgers.
Oh, deer burger.
Venison's tasty.
Venison.
It is.
Venison.
And actually, it's considered a pest in Chapel Hill area.
I
You
lived in
guys
Chapel
even
Hill
have
for a
urban
bunch of
deer
years.
hunting.
Oh,
Yep.
it's crazy.
We do. Back when I could eat meat, I remember having equated and this was a cooked venison dish with the taste of roast beef. I found the two tastes very similar.
They're delicious.
Now, is it all meat that's a problem for you, Jen, or just beef?
Meat that breathes free oxygen from a free oxygen atmosphere. So,
That's most of it. Yeah.
You said you could do
Except-
alligators, though, right?
except I can eat old world apes and monkeys because they don't have the alpha galactose sugar in it. So guess who's an old world ape besides
Yeah.
Harambe?
Humans.
Humans. So if
She
I
can
ever
have
had
long pig.
if I ever had to be a cannibal, I'd be okay. I'm good.
Jen's. I believe this is clickbait. Jen's a cannibal.
Progressive threatens to eat others.
And
Threatening. I'm just saying that I'll be okay. In a zombie apocalypse, I'll be okay.
Hey, we're just editorializing this. We're just taking the gist of what we took from you said.
Brendan has
My daughter has joined us.
studio guest. Can she hear us?
No, but I can flip that switch, and then she'll be able to hear us. I hope there isn't too much echo when this kicks in.
Not hearing any echo yet. Hello, Brendan's offspring. What's your name?
Nora.
Nora, good to meet you. You want to be a regular podcaster?
What did you say?
You
Do
want-
you want to become a regular podcaster full time?
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Brendan, see ya. Nora,
Yeah.
take a seat.
Yeah.
Are you trying
We're
to?
gonna go.
Yep. This is my summons, unfortunately.
No problem.
The pandemic hack that we have worked out nicely is that you can reserve campsites at state parks that have access to beaches because the campsite has access to a beach. And it's not that expensive. And then you have a private little sliver of beach. And they've closed the beaches at Jordan Lake and they've closed the public access beaches, but the campsites are open.
Do I tell everybody what my favorite site at Jordan Lake
Nope.
is now, or
It'll
do
be
I
gone.
keep that secret
It
so
will
that
be
you
gone.
can have it?
Keep it to yourself. Let people go exploring.
So
There's also there's Falls Lake, there's Jordan Lake, there's a couple of other places nearby that have camping rentals, and especially midweek, we often get one for like a Wednesday, like a Tuesday night or Wednesday night, because you have your pick of the litter then, and you just show up the next morning with the kids, and you have a beach you can play at until it gets too hot to stand it, and then you go home, and it's amazing, and you're helping fund state parks, and you're helping fund the salaries of the folks who are working there, and you get to be out in nature in a safe way. So it's a win for everybody.
Now, is that where you're headed now?
Yes.
I
Aha.
would also like to add Fuse Ford for a day use area. It's at Eno, it's in Durham, it's open, it's free, and it's good for toddlers because it is literally a ford. The water goes up maybe mid-calf, maybe if you try
Also-
really hard and find a deep part.
Most of the campsites are like $12 for a night. This is not a major spending decision.
Yeah.
Like you can do this once or twice a month instead of going to the movie you would have gone to before the pandemic, and you're out of the house and your kids aren't eating the scenery, and it's better. So I strongly recommend.
Taking your hammock?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This right here. For folks watching the video, that's Brendan lying in his hammock.
Thanks again for the for being on the show. I will wear my Hawaiian shirt next week, my Aloha shirt next week,
All right.
to match the hammock. But
we will
see.
We will see you then.
Thank you.
Breandan Dezendorf, Practical Operations Podcast, for those of you that are deep into the high-tech world, especially Linux, and
That's us.
need to know how to keep your system going.
Okay.
See you next week.
See ya.
Okay, so Sarah, that makes the show turn into what last week we called the Jen and Gary show. The question is, can you stick around?
I can. Do we have enough topics to continue?
Oh, probably.
We've got Tar Heels, COVID-19 development at UNC Chapel Hill. And the one I just added, would Hank Hill have voted for Trump?
I was wondering. I was like, that one doesn't seem as well fleshed out, but I like it.
Well, it's because it's just a question. Given our knowledge of Hank Hill, would he have voted for Trump?
Looking for
are we diving into that now, or are we gonna leave that to marinate for the end of the conversation?
Well, that's just that. It's whenever Gary, the show host, wants to discuss it. But I felt like it didn't need more explanation than just writing the question.
We're
That's
all
fair.
show hosts here.
Well, Gary, as our benevolent dictator, what are we going to discuss?
Well, first of all, it's the Sarah, Jen, and Gary show. What do you want? Let's do Hank Hill.
Oh gosh.
Because I get so little input from my co-hosts that I'm loath to put any of it last.
Oh,
Does everybody know who Hank Hill is? King of the Hill. Cartoon.
Yep.
Not a kid's cartoon.
I don't
Adult
know,
cartoon.
because I think that there might be an assumption that, well, Hank Hill is from Texas. He is, a traditionalist in many ways, and therefore people might assume that he's a Republican. But I don't know. We didn't get a whole lot of political vibes at all from him during that show.
Been a long
I think
time
maybe
since
he
I've
would be a
seen it.
non-voter.
I think
Hank Hill sells propane and propane accessories, last I saw. And he sounds a little bit like this.
Yeah, I think Dale would be the non-voter because Dale is the conspiracy nut, and so he wouldn't vote because voting might put a microchip in his pet monkey, or I don't know.
I was going to say, it would put him, he would have to register, which would put him on a list. Not that he doesn't believe he's already on a list.
We do talk about TV shows we like.
But what makes you think that Hank would be a voter? I mean, I just statistically, he would probably be a non-voter.
Because he loves Peggy, and Peggy is very politically active. And there's no way that Hank Hill would get to share a house with Peggy if he wasn't a voter.
So does Peggy then, does she the one who decides who they're voting for together? Or do you think that he takes different political tact from his wife?
I think he would take a different political tack from his wife from time to time because he does disagree with her about political issues as the show goes on. Although you never see him being, the more systematic political, like voting and things. So I think he'd get to choose his own vote. But I don't think, and this, I've had a longer time to think about this question. I don't think Hank would be a Trump voter. I think he would actually vote Libertarian. And here's why.
I could see Dale talking him into voting Libertarian at least.
So first
So
of all,
Dale's Libertarian.
Dale doesn't vote
running joke, yes.
He's doesn't want to be on a list, but,
which is another problem about libertarians, but that's another show.
So Hank, there are many, many episodes that I have seen. So where Hank is clearly not xenophobic. In fact, sometimes he's anti-xenophobic. He helps out specifically Latinx immigrants. So Trump leading with that being his main campaign point, leading with that would have turned Hank off immediately, and then Dale could have talked him very easily into the Gary Johnson ticket.
I could see him being like a never Trumper.
Yeah. Hank would also, because of who Hank is, consider Trump a slick and dishonest city boy. He would dislike his lack of integrity. Hank doesn't like somebody with a weak handshake. There's that in several episodes. And Peggy would have just straight up kicked him out of the house.
I could see even like the kind of couple that always confused me the most, but I came across so many of them whenever I do canvassing is I could see him being one of those people who's like, I'm voting to neutralize my wife's vote. And I've never understood people who do that. And they're like, I'm glad that my partner is involved in politics, but I don't agree with them and they don't know what they're talking about, so I'm voting the other way just so that it won't be an issue. It's like, what?
Chinese or
what
Japanese?
Trick or treat.
Oh my, aren't you boys the scariest?
Yeah, man, talk about dang old boo, man.
That's Dale.
Mrs. Hill, in your own words, your own Spanish words, please tell the judge what happened with little Lupe.
Su Pudenor. Yo poder ver
So Peggy, right?
Yep, that's his wife, Peggy.
Peggy habla español.
She tries.
A little
She
bit.
tries.
I do believe I'll give.
But so for those on the audio only podcast, Gary looked up King of the Hill's funniest moments, and the very first funny moment was Hank very much not being xenophobic. And this current funny moment that he's showing.
Chinese or Japanese?
I live in California. That's 20 years.
The funny moment where he's throwing clothes out of the window is also to help out an immigrant. So there's multiple episodes where he's clearly not xenophobic, which I think would have turned him off Trump if the weak handshake hadn't
Probably
done
got
it.
him kicked off of TV too, as a cartoon.
He was a very respectful. He's very much a respectability kind of guy. So I could see him at least falling in that never Trumper and maybe could be talked into voting for Johnson. I don't know how he would vote this election though. As a whole other question.
Yeah, we shall see. What I don't know. He might vote. Could be talked into voting for the Libertarian candidate again. I think because you do get a sense that Hank is the old school Republican values, fiscal conservatism, small government. And that seems to be the Libertarians have taken that and run with it. And the Republicans have released it.
Well, yeah, at the very least, they find us to be more of a home than they do the Republicans now. Republicans are populism and Trump.
And xenophobia.
And xenophobia sometimes.
So the last vestige isn't the word I'm looking for. The last missing word of a scoundrel.
Resort?
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
But I've noticed lately the Republicans, especially with the school issue, how Cooper is like, I'm not going to decide what's going to happen with schools. I'm going to let your local districts make locally adapted, locally responsive decisions. The people who are crying out, who want Cooper to have made some big decision that would or could override their locally adapted, locally responsive school decision, generally tend to be the Republicans. And I'm like, this is small government, my friends.
No, because when Republicans say small government, they mean the state should be able to make all the decisions. They mean not the feds, but they also mean not the municipalities. We don't want government to be that small if you're a Republican. Whereas libertarians tend to go, how small can we get?
Make it evaporate.
Well, I mean, if we can get it down, it's very interesting that once you start talking to libertarians, they're much more comfortable with a wider variety of policies when it is boiled down to that local level where you're actually being responsive and the people in the community are the ones who are enacting those changes rather than, generalizing it and saying, well, we're going to have a best, one size fits all solution for the entire state. It doesn't make sense because you have very different communities with different needs.
I know this is a show, and I don't think there's one libertarian answer to this, but how small can you get government?
Well, you want the libertarian answer or the anarchist answer?
Here's my building. My building has its own sort of. We've got a little grassroots government going. The neighbor across the breezeway from me appears to be our elected chair of the building.
Well, you're conflating government and governance. And those are two very different things. Governance is a thing that people will always naturally do. It's what you're describing.
Why isn't a governance structure that's semi-formalized a government?
Because a government reserves the right to use violence in order to enforce their decisions. Governance is other. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Is anytime you pass a law, you are saying that if you choose to not follow this, eventually somebody with a gun can show up and force you to do that. Or
that could happen in your building.
I'm sitting here evaluating whether or not somebody would whack somebody else with a cutting board over the head to enforce some of the building rules we've come up with, and maybe.
But then the idea is then that's what we've determined. Okay, that's what your local law enforcement is there for, because we don't exert violence against each other. The only party that we've said is allowed to exert violence against you is the state, usually via the police force, which hey, what are we protesting right now? Has to be responsible use, at the very least, when it's boiled down to, the state police are a lot less accountable than your local police are. It's been really heartening that you've seen actual movement at the local level. If you want to reform your law enforcement, well, it does actually come down to who is enforcing laws against you, and what are the laws that they're doing that.
Jen's a big fan of the county sheriff.
Tangents.
I like county sheriffs because they're elected. They're elected positions rather than appointed.
I think if you want to make real change, if you're going to focus on like elected offices, DAs and sheriffs are way, way under utilized. Like people don't even pay attention to them a lot of times, but they have so much discretion and they make so many decisions that actually would impact your day-to-day life in your community.
And I've seen DAs hold on to cases or drop cases in an election year specifically because they want to be able to play it one way or another in their re-election campaigns, which I don't think that's justice. Justice should be to get somebody reelected.
Well, and not even that, but like they're the ones who are really like holding people's lives in the balance there. They're the DAs are the ones who direct their prosecutors and who decide like, how are we going to determine what is successful in this office? Am I going to encourage my prosecutors to, overcharge and try to push for a plea deal so that we have as few cases as possible to go to trial? Or are we going to try and focus on making sure that people have an ability to have, flexibility to come up with creative solutions so that maybe fewer people end up incarcerated? It all depends on what the goal that's set by the prosecutor is. And when the only people who pay attention to those kind of races are the ones who just want to hear you say, well, law and order, I'll be tough on crime. How is it a shock that that's what we end up with in the system? Because we end up having people who say, well, I'll just be as hard as possible on everybody who comes through and, try and get the worst possible outcome because it'll make sure you have good numbers. Sorry, I guess that's my soapbox moment.
Oh, wait, that was an instant editorial.
There you go. That was an instant editorial. Sorry, we got on my topic again.
I got a feeling that is not going to be hard to do on a regular basis. So the question was how small, and you said, well, take your pick. Is it anarchy or libertarian? So
the idea of how small can you get is anytime that you send something to say, I want the state to enforce this, or I want my government to enforce this, you're pushing that often to making it a little bit more depersonalized. So sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it's not. But the idea that somebody who doesn't understand the issues in your community is going to necessarily handle them better is not one that always bears out.
So your first question will be, is there a better way?
Yeah. Is there really a need for this? Is this something that we need to use force to try and solve? Or is this something that we as a community can already do better?
Or as a community, we could do better if we were willing to not have everything go through the man with a gun.
Yes. Well, and that's one of the interesting things that you see is that smaller governments that deal with less issues, especially things that can be termed like social issues, they tend to have higher charity in those areas too, because people don't assume that it's not their problem. I mean, there's a lot of sadness to the idea that when people are in areas where they know, well, there are soup kitchens, there are, shelters that are funded by the city. There's somebody else to take care of you. I've paid my taxes. I don't have to worry about you. But if you know that, like, actually, no, this is a member of your community that if you don't step up to try and help, you don't just get to shove off your responsibility. Or worse yet, people who decide, well, I'm going to spend my time and my energy and my money lobbying to have my government solve a problem that I understand and could actually start enacting change on and solutions myself. But I don't even feel empowered to do that because I don't have an idea of how I could solve this through voluntary action rather than, well, I'm just supposed to ask the government to do that. We have hurricane relief is one of my favorite examples in North Carolina that we have of something that voluntary forces. They do faster, they are more responsive, and the communities themselves end up being what supports those. But the tax money that they end up paying out to the state rarely ever ends up coming back and actually funding the services that did the life-saving and property-saving services in the first place. And I mean, it's another soapbox as to what legislation could fix that. But there's a social aspect to it that if we can shift away from the idea that doing things, passing a law and making something illegal or making a new tax to fund something that we think is going to make a solution is the only way to solve something, because it depersonalizes it. And you know what governments are really bad at doing is looking back at their programs and saying, did this work? Did this have the intended impact, and did it solve the problem in the first place, or did we make a new fun one?
I'm just going to keep pushing this button.
Somebody else speak, please.
So what Sarah doesn't know, and because you can't hear it on this end, is when I push that button, not only does the title flash on the screen, which currently says clickbait, but there's a klaxon horn that goes ooga ooga on the audio. But you can't hear that. It just goes out to the audience.
It's true. Making something illegal just means that we then have to spend money on the consequence. It does not necessarily mean people will suddenly go, oh, it's illegal to murder? I maybe shouldn't kill this person then. Murderers go murder.
Okay, so let's do this.
Sometimes they have the opposite effect. Let's look at how masks have worked out. I am annoyed by the amount of people.
This is because last week.
Tom Lehrer.
There's antimony, arsenic, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen, and oxygen, and nitrogen, and rhenium, and nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium, and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium, and lanthanum, and osmium, and astatine, and radium, and gold, protactinium, and indium, and gallium, and iodine, and thorium, and thulium, and thallium. There's yttrium, ytterbium, actinium, rubidium, and boron, gadolinium, niobium, and iridium, and
favorite
strontium,
element.
and silicon, and silver, and samarium, and bismuth, chromium, lithium, beryllium, and barium.
And the eye bounces. That's the best part.
There's holmium, and helium, and hafnium, and erbium, and phosphorus, and francium, and fluorine, and terbium, and manganese, and mercurium, molybdenum, magnesium, dysprosium, and scandium, and cerium, and cesium, and lead, praseodymium, and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium,
if you discover a new element, you get to name it.
And cadmium,
dysprosium,
chromium, and
The
curium.
names of some of these.
There's
Curium was named after
sulfur,
Madame
californium,
Curie.
berkelium, and also mendelevium,
Berkelium was named
nobelium,
after
and argon,
Berkeley.
krypton, neon, radon,
Californium
xenon,
was
rhodium,
named after
chlorine,
California.
copper, cobalt, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones of which the news has come to Harvard. And there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered.
Here's the list of things that have been discovered since that was a...
Rutherfordium. Guess what? Guess what it's named after? Yeah. Yes. Rubidium, by the way, my favorite element. And there is an episode of... I can't remember what it's an episode of, but...
it's got to be Big Bang Theory.
No, it was it's like Modern Marvels, but I don't think it's Modern Marvels. It's one of those shows that was on either Discovery or TLC back in the day. And they are putting the alkali metals, not the alkaline earth metals, which are the ones with one more proton or one more electron in their outer shell, but the alkali metals, which is the very left-hand column of the periodic table, into water and letting you see what happens. So if you put sodium, pure sodium, into water, it kind of catches fire. It's very cool because they have an oxidation reaction. And I remember
that's not salt. Salt is sodium
chloride. So it's not pure. It's not pure anymore. So if you put sodium chloride into water, all you get is brine that you can then use to pickle things. They have this pure elemental rubidium, and the guy, who I remember having a British accent, said something like, "When we're going to put this rubidium into this bathtub, and it'll be like putting a grenade into a bathtub." And then, like, from a very far distance, and I really think it was Mythbusters, maybe. They've got this long robot arm with this teeny tiny bit of rubidium, and they just drop it into literally a bathtub of water that they've put a crash test dummy in, or a mannequin in, and it just, like somebody dropped a hand grenade in a bathtub. And that was rubidium was already my favorite element before that moment, but that moment just sealed it for me.
So if you get your hands on some rubidium, don't put it in the bathtub.
No, you should never put pure elements into a bathtub ever.
Is it nuclear?
You should leave them in the oil that they're in.
Is it radioactive?
Slightly, yeah. They use rubidium and barium in medical tracing applications.
not watch faces.
I think watch faces have radium instead, which is a different element.
It still irradiates your wrist. I don't think they do that anymore.
Not that I'm aware of, but you never know. I mean, what are we going to discover tomorrow that hurts us? When you start getting
everything's going to give you cancer eventually. That's my conclusion.
When I worked in the lab at the National Institutes of Health, like I said, the lab published a paper on cancer because we were a lab that studied causes of cancer, and the forward to the book, the introduction to the book, started with "Everything gives you cancer, so just enjoy your life in moderation."
So when I got cancer, which was diagnosed last November, we didn't even bother with the why. There was.
It just was.
Yeah, as Yoda says, there was no why. There was only what we do next.
Yep.
So speaking of which, when we grow our hair back, it is very, very curly now. Did not used to be curly. And in February did not used to be hair. So I've had the last vestige of my cancer stuff has now been finished. I had a port underneath here for injecting chemicals at a high rate of speed into my heart. But as it turned out that a tube went actually up under my collarbone into a vein up in my throat and then through the vein down toward my heart. And then they pulled that out last week. And so now I just have a little bandage that's still, when that comes off, we're done. Cancer, we're done.
So for those confused as to why we took a little break and went down the Elements song rabbit hole, last week when we were criticizing other people's reaction videos to music they'd never heard before. Well,
we were criticizing them in the sense of a critic being critical but not negative critical. We were actually complimenting them.
We weren't deriding them or berating them. We were just offering commentary and critique. There was a portion of it that I misidentified as being from the Pirates of Penzance, which is the song that's going behind the Element song. And I did mention that the Element song is how I knew the modern Major General song from Pirates of Penzance better, how I preferred it. So Gary has brought it to us this week. So you can go back and listen to last week's episode 100, if you want to hear me get music wrong.
That was a good episode. The music is by Sir Arthur Sullivan. The lyrics by Tom Lehrer.
It is from the Pirates of Penzance. It is the I Am the Very Picture of a Modern Major General song.
Yeah.
Which tends to be, if you've ever heard of Pirates of Penzance and only have heard of it slightly, this tends to be the song you know. And if you've never heard of Pirates of Penzance, then you should definitely watch it because it's hilarious.
Yeah, well, Gilbert and Sullivan.
It's a Gilbert and Sullivan comedy.
So he's the Sullivan of Gilbert and Sullivan, apparently. So are we Tar Heels?
I mean, I am. I go barefoot.
Anybody born in North Carolina?
Yes. Holla. I was born at Wake Med, but back then they called it Raleigh Community Hospital.
And you've been in North Carolina all your life?
All my life. Never left. Okay. I've traveled, but I've never moved. My home address has never been anywhere but, in fact, the Triangle. I've never moved out of the Triangle.
Okay.
My family is very much from North Carolina forever. But I was personally not born, but I was, I think, the first generation, at least on my father's side.
You spent some
couple
time
hundred years.
And I believe you pronounced it Louisiana?
Yes, I was born in Louisiana.
Not Louisiana.
No, too many syllables.
We're conserving syllables. Part of the syllabic conservation movement.
We just make sure to be relaxed in the way that we're speaking. How about that?
All right. But there's a word that I'm constantly trying to prevent a shortage of a syllable of, and that is preventive. Because everybody wants to say preventative. Why the extra syllable?
Those are two different words.
No, they're the same word. Preventive, preventative.
Because one of them almost sounds like tater.
I guess.
And everybody likes taters.
Well, yeah, but I don't want the world to end to run out of Taz. So it's.
I know. I'm thinking. I'm like, there's got to be a grammatical use there. Maybe it's when something is preventing versus when something is preventative.
Nope.
There are a couple of other words where people want to throw in an extra syllable, and I'll think of them.
And then there's irregardless.
It's a cafe in Raleigh. It's changed hands a couple of times. She doesn't anymore because she's moved to New York City. But there was a woman who was a chaplain at the local area hospitals that used to go and play her mountain instrument. I'm struggling with the name of it. It's not a lute. It's not a lyre, but it's something else that's, of that generation. She used to go play at Irregardless Cafe.
Merriam-Webster. There is no difference between preventive and preventative. They are both adjectives meant used to stop.
Gary, you're right.
Used to stop. I'm going to just grind it in your face here for a while. Used to stop something bad from happening. Both words are commonly used in contexts concerning healthcare, as in preventive or preventative medicine. Preventive, however, is used. Oh, it says preventive is used much more frequently than preventative. I disagree. I think you always hear preventative.
I think it's one of those like written versus speaking things, because we don't tend to write in contractions nearly as often as we speak in contractions.
That's very true.
I think it might be the same here.
Yeah. But it doesn't say one is wrong. It says they are equivalent. They're okay. But I think preventative is wrong.
Well, and we are all entitled to have strong opinions about
regardless,
those things.
The preventive or preventative way of not being a Tar Heel is to wear shoes and socks instead of running outside barefoot.
And by the way,
but so is this the latest thing that we're deciding that we care about instead of systemic reform?
Yeah. It's a reform theater. Well, it's coming out of the Redskins naming thing, and in this case,